Hey there, welcome to my channel. My name is Sean. If you're new here, welcome. And to my returning channel subscribers and members, welcome back. So today's video is going to be one that is basically me responding to questions, emails, comments that I've been getting about starting a embroidery business, or just not even starting a embroidery business, but just getting into embroidery. And so I just wanted to give the must-haves to at least start. So whether you're looking at machines, you're deciding whether or not you're wanting to get into embroidery, you're not sure of the costs related to get into embroidery, things like that, I'm just going to go over. I have some notes here, so I'll be looking down. So I was working on a beginner's embroidery guide. I will, once it's finished, I will be putting this in the Patreon group for all my members to access, and they'll have that information. But I wanted to go over it here because I get asked these questions a lot. And so it's just basically what you really need to get started with embroidery, not specifically a business unless you're already at that point and maybe you're wanting to scale or go from a single needle to a multi-needle or whatever the case may be. So I'll give you that information now. So starting out, and I'm just going to go through the list and then I'm going to break each topic down for you. So starting out, you would definitely you have to have an embroidery machine, whether it be a single needle or multi-needle. You would have to have embroidery thread. You're going to have embroidery needles. You would have to have stabilizers. You're going to have hoops. You're going to have scissors, your fabric or your blanks, design software if you choose to have that, as well as a flash drive or Wi-Fi transfer capability with your machine. So breaking it down, and we're going to start with thread types. So as far as the different types of threads, the most popular thread is going to be polyester. So that's pretty much the thread that I use the majority of the time. I do have some like metallic threads, some matte threads that I use occasionally, but mainly I'm using polyester thread just because it gives a really nice shiny finish. There's rayon, there's cotton, there's metallic, as I mentioned, there's matte. So there's different threads out there, but you will also might have to make slight adjustments, minor adjustments, either to your tension, or it could be either even changing the needle with some of these threads just to make sure that you don't have issues while you're stitching out. But that will be another video for another day. Now going into the embroidery needles and sizes. So the most common is going to be your standard 7511 needle. That's usually a general use. You can use that for a lot of different items. For example, like cotton, t-shirts, fleece, stuff like that. 7511 needles are good for. But then there's also 65-9 needles. Personally, I use 65-9 needles for tiny or small fonts, especially when I'm embroidering on hats. 65-9 and shirts as well if I'm doing like a left chest design, just to get any small text. I've noticed that the 65-9 needles do a lot better with that than the 75-11. And so that will also be a 65-9 needle will also be for like a lightweight cotton or a lightweight material as well. 8012 is more so for heavier fabrics. I use 8012 titanium needles for my hats, as well as you can use those on denim is another one that I use 8012 needles for. Twill. Some people say fleece. I haven't had any issues using the 7511 needle with fleece, so you could go either way. I just kind of use that 7511 needle for that, but for more heavier fabrics, you would definitely want to use a 8012 needle. And a 90-14 would be for your thick materials like your canvas or your heavy knits, things like that will be what you would use the 90-14 needle for. I use it sometimes here and there, but mainly my go-tos are the 80-12, 75-11, and 65-9 are the three most common needles that I use with the items that I embroider on. Next would be your stabilizers. So you cannot embroider without stabilizer unless you're doing a structured hat. I would say Richardson's, you really don't need stabilizer for those hats. Richardson 112s, some structured auto caps, and then some of the caps that I order as well from my vendor, Pitbull. The structured hats don't always need stabilizer. So that would be probably the only item that you should embroider without stabilizer. And honestly, I still use a piece of tearaway stabilizer just because. But you'll definitely want to make sure you have these three starting out. So you would definitely want to have tearaway, cutaway, and wash away. Or water soluble is wash away. You would definitely want to have those three to start with. There's so many more. There's sticky stabilizer, there's fusible stabilizer. So there's many others, but those are the top three that you should always have, regardless of what you're making: tearaway, cutaway, and wash away. Now, your tearaway is going to be for more structured materials or fabrics. And tearaway, the saying is, if you wear it, don't tear it. So if it's something that you're going to wear or that you're selling for a customer to wear, you should be using cutaway stabilizer. You should not use tearaway. So anything, if you're doing like a tote bag or a cosmetic pouch or backpack, things like that, that would call for tearaway. If you're doing a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, even blankets, I do like to use a cutaway stabilizer, especially on my minky blankets. But I'll use a no-show mesh cutaway stabilizer on those versus a tearaway. I just noticed with that particular type of fabric that it does stitch out better when I use a cutaway versus a tearaway on blankets. But that is up in the air for debate. If you choose to use tearaway on a blanket, any type of blanket, you could definitely do that because it's not actually something that you're physically wearing on your body. You're just using it to cover up or whatever. And your wash away. Your wash away would be for like your delicate, your sheer items, like your lace, if you're embroidering on tulle or anything like very delicate, you should use wash away. And you should also use wash away when you're doing like shirts, sweatshirts, specifically, not t-shirts, but anything where the item is kind of a little bit more fluffy, or I can't even think of the word that I'm looking for right now, but any type of item like a sweatshirt, a fleece, a flannel, like those types of materials, you would definitely want to use wash away on the top. That just helps. So that material, especially on fleece, your stitches can tend to kind of sink in the material, and then you're going to have the fleece around it kind of almost covering it a little bit. So that wash away stabilizer, having that on top, you would still use your stabilizer underneath, but put that wash away on top, and that will actually help prevent your stitches from sinking into your garment. And I do this regardless of if I do a knockdown stitch or not. So majority of the time, if it's going to be on a t-shirt or a fleece or something like that, I am not doing a knockdown stitch. I only do my knockdown stitches on my blankets. And even with the knockdown stitch on my blankets, I still use a piece of wash away stabilizer just so it holds its structure, its shape, and it doesn't tend to sink down into the material. And then the adhesive or the sticky stabilizer or adhesive back stabilizer, that could be more for a slippery type of item, something that you feel might shift is really good for that. But I really don't use sticky stabilizer. I pretty much use my wash away, my tear away, my cutaway. Those are my three mains that I use. I do have fusible and a couple others that I tend to use from time to time, but yeah, those three, definitely you want to have those on hand at all times. Okay, now going on to machines, let's talk about embroidery machines. Now, there's such thing as your single needle machine or your multi-needle machines. Now, I have both. I have two single needle machines and I have my bi-mirror multi-needle 15 needle machine. So you will probably be told, purchase the biggest hoop that you can afford. I say purchase what you can comfortably with your budget without putting yourself into major debt. Okay, so I started with a Brother PE 535. Well, most recently, prior years ago, I had a Singer embroidery machine. I forgot the model number of it. That was about in 2020, I believe, 2020, 2021, somewhere up in there. And when I moved, it was broken and I kind of just didn't think about it and then got back into embroidery again. And I brought a Brother PE 535. And then from there, I got a PE 800. I had that for like a month and I sold it because I wanted the PE 900, which I still haven't used to this day. I've had that for like 2 years now. And the only reason I went from the 800 to the PE 900 was because it cut jump stitches. That's the only reason. So I went, sold it, put it on Marketplace. The PE 800 sold within like a few days, and I took that money and purchased my PE 900. I've been using it ever since. No issues, and I love her. Now, with that being said, I went from the 535 to the 800 to the 900. Now, the PE 535 has a max size of a 4x4 hoop. You can get a repositional hoop for those, but I want to say, I believe it's like a 4x6 max. I never purchased it, so I never tried it out. But on your Brother PE 800 and 900, which have a 5x7 max hoop size, which is still a really good hoop size, especially if you're starting out, I actually then learned about the repositional hoop, where you can do split designs and make larger designs. So I was doing that for a bit with shirts, but then it just became overwhelming as orders were coming in. I needed something that could accommodate me getting things done faster and not having to digitize and split all these designs and then hoop them up, and then it was a hot mess. So then in came the multi-needle machine, and I was very, very happy to get one. I had been shopping around, weighing my options, pros and cons, and prices and service and shipping and all that stuff I was looking into. And I've kept coming back around to buy. I started looking and eyeing a buy, and now I have my buy years later. So this is the bi-mirror 15 needle machine. They do have the Vision, which is a little bit bigger, and then but also 15 needles, and they also have multi-heads as well. So of course I have a single head, and the difference between your single needle and multi-needle says it right there in the names: single needle, multi-needle. You're going to have one needle or you're going to have multiple needles, whether it's 6 needles, 10 needles, 12 needles, 15 needles, 20 needles. There is a variety of multi-needle embroidery machines out there, a variety of brands that you can look at. But I would say, make sure you're looking at what you can comfortably afford as far as the price, customer service. How does that particular machine brand handle their customer service? And for me, shipping, how long is it going to take for me to get the machine and make sure that the machine arrives in one piece, undamaged, unharmed, things like that. So those were the three most important factors to me when shopping for a multi-needle machine. Now, so of course the needles, that's going to be the biggest thing. The thread changes. With a single needle machine, you're going to have a manual thread change, sorry. So a manual thread change is if you have 4 colors in a design, it's going to stitch out that first color, then it's going to stop. You're going to have to switch the thread out and then hit start, and then you kind of just rinse and repeat that process. With the multi-needle machine, you set your colors ahead of time. If your design has 4 colors or 10 colors, you set your colors, and when one color finished stitching out, then it'll move, the machine will automatically stop, and it'll move over to that needle, particular needle and color that you selected when you were setting up your design. And then it'll start stitching out that color, and it'll keep doing that process until your design is finished. So you don't have to worry about stopping to change your thread colors. So it saves you a lot of time there. The speed, of course, your multi-needle will be faster, much faster than your single needle. My brother, I'm not even sure what's the highest stitches per minute that machine goes. I want to say maybe 500-600-ish. I'm not even sure. This machine goes up to like 1200. So it's fast. Now, have I pushed it all the way to 1200? No, I haven't. But I can say I could do hats on this machine at 700 to 800 stitches per minute, which is insane. So in my flat garments, I usually stick around 800 to 900 stitches per minute with no issues. So you're going to get things done a lot faster than you could with a single needle machine. Your hoop options. Now, again, going back to when you're looking at getting your first embroidery machine and selecting, or as people would say, select the biggest hoop you can afford. You're going to have more hoop options with a multi-needle machine. Now, while with, again, my brother PE 900 is a 5x7 hoop. I have a 4x4, 5x7. I want to say I also like a 2x2, and then the repositional hoop, the 5x12. So there is options to go a little bit bigger with that repositional hoop, but there are an extra couple of steps with that. And if you aren't digitizing your own designs, you have to make sure you let your digitizer know that you need it as a split design. And so they'll send you the 2 files so you can separate and do the 2 pieces separate, even though it'll come out as one piece. And I'll link a video in the description box showing more how to use the repositional hoop. Now, with that, again, you're just going to have more hoop options. I want to say this machine max embroidery area is 20 by 14, I think. Might be a little bit bigger or smaller, but I want to say about 20 by 14 is about the max embroidery size. Now, I really don't have anything 20 inches I ever have to embroider, even when it comes to like a 3X sweatshirt. I still don't need to use my biggest hoop. Now, that's going to be your, I would say the biggest pro with getting a multi-needle machine is that you can't outgrow the machine. You can outgrow the production on the machine, meaning that maybe it's time that you start looking at adding a second machine or a multi-head machine because of the production or the business that you're getting, and your machine is running all day, every day, cranking out orders. Then yeah, you can, kind of max out at your production, if that makes sense. As far as how many items you can get done in a day, where you feel like, okay, now it's time to add another machine, but you're still not, outgrowing the machine itself. You're just expanding, you're scaling your business. So that's a good thing. That's a good problem to have. With your single needle machines, you can outgrow the machine very fast. Again, I had that. Even when I had my Singer, that had a larger hoop than my initial brother, now that I think about it. But with that 4x4 hoop, unless you're specifically maybe just doing left chest designs, or maybe just doing patches, or even keychains, things like that, or little, small items that you're embroidering, you may not outgrow it. But to have a 5x7 hoop and then be able to do bigger items, eventually, I think most people that start with a 4x4 hoop eventually end up getting a a machine with a 5x7 hoop, usually within about the 6 to 9 month range, just because they quickly outgrow that, because they see other things and want to try other things, and so naturally they outgrow it. But the good thing is, embroidery machines, especially nowadays, as many people as that are getting into embroidery, these machines hold their value. Again, I put my PE 800 on Marketplace and I set a price for it. I had one person that tried to negotiate the price for me. I told them no. I wasn't desperate to sell it or anything like that. And then another person wanted it right away, and that was within a few days. These machines hold their value. So even if you start with a 4x4 hoop or a 5x7 hoop, or you want to go from a 4x4 to 5x7, you can list that machine. Somebody's going to buy that machine, trust me. And it's not going to take a long time at all. Now, if you want to go for a 5x7, you're like, okay, I just need to get a multi-needle, then that's when you're going to have to do your research, and you want to also look at what it is that you're going to be using the machine for, to make sure that you purchase the right machine for yourself, for your needs, for your business, or whatever the case you're going to be using it for. Just make sure that you do your research. Another thing regarding single needle versus multi-needle, your single needle will be usually is really good for beginners trying to figure out, everything that comes with embroidery. And trust me, you're not just going to learn everything overnight. You're not going to learn everything in a few months. I still learn things to this day. And I learned it from my other mutuals, especially over on TikTok. Different information that I just like, oh, I didn't know that, or oh, let me try it that way. So you're always going to be learning. But long as you have the basics down that I was saying, like once you get your machine and then you play around with the different types of thread, you learn your needles, you learn what to use, which stabilizers for which fabric. And then your supplies or your notions or things like that you would need, your blanks. If you're going to be doing applique, what type of fabric are you going to be using for that? As well as, are you going to want to learn to digitize, or will you be purchasing designs, getting them from maybe Creative Fabrica, from Etsy, things like that? Will you have a personal digitizer, or are you going to take the time to learn digitizing? Now, digitizing is a whole nother beast. I would suggest learning your machine, whether it's a multi-needle or a single needle, and then start learning digitizing if you choose to go that route, because it takes time. I've been using Hatch for going on 2 years now, and there's things in there I'm still learning. So even after I took John Deere's Hatch classes, I still to this day watch and take some of the tutorials in the Hatch software and just play around in the software and try and learn different things on my own. So it is an ongoing learning process. And then now I'm also learning John Deere's Embroidery Legacy software. So now that's a whole nother learning curve that I'm going through, learning his software. But once you learn how to digitize in one software, the knowledge, the skills stay there. It's really learning where certain features are in one software versus another. So with that, once you know how to digitize, at least you know the basics, and you're understanding certain things that come along with digitizing, then you could take that knowledge and apply it to other software. But there's still going to be a slight learning curve. They're learning where everything is in that new software. And then going back to having flash drives, I have one specifically for my DST designs, and then one for my PES designs for my brother machine, and then I have the one which is DST for my buy machine. So I just keep those flash drives with my designs on there, but I also save my designs in a folder on my computer. Once I digitize a design in Hatch, I'll save it in Hatch as an EMB file, which is their file format for that software. But then I'll export it and I'll save it, whether it's going to be PES or DST, it depends. So again, having the flash drive, or if your machine, you could do Wi-Fi transfer, which I can do on my buy, and I love it that I could just digitize it, upload it to my folder, put it in Stitch, and then it just wirelessly transfers. I love that. And so, and not all machines have that capability, but a lot of them, I notice more machines do have that capability now. And just want to make sure that I covered everything. Oh, and your scissors and, different like notions that you'll need like that. So your scissors, you definitely want to invest in good applique scissors, fabric scissors. You want to have a rotary cutter. Let's see what else. You want to have like scissors for your stabilizer, paper scissors. You want to have different types of scissors for different types of items. But then your rotary cutters, cutting mat, you'll want to have like rulers and things like that. Just trying to think what else. Any pins you might need if you're needing to pin anything down, especially on single needle machines. Sometimes if you're doing an applique, you can pin it on the sides of the hoop so nothing moves or shifts, things like that. But overall, those are going to be the things the basics. Those are the basic things that you're going to need to get started with embroidery. And again, regardless of if you're considering single needle or multi-needle, if you're just getting into embroidery, I would say definitely get your feet wet. Make sure that it's something that you feel you're going to stick with before you make a huge investment. Now, if you're like me and you just dive into things head first, then, go ahead, do what works for you. But do I wish I would have started with a multi-needle? Probably. Well, initially back in 2020 when I started, I was learning embroidery. So I knew nothing about it. So definitely a multi-needle wasn't even in my mind. It wasn't even a thought at that time. But now, knowing what I know, I'm glad I did start that way. But then when I got back into embroidery, I wish I would have kind of just went ahead and got a multi-needle, just because I went from one machine to another machine to another machine to another machine, and then finally a multi-needle machine. So definitely, if you're not sure if it's just going to be for a hobby, maybe you just want to make some patches, something for yourself, maybe, your kids, grandkids, or whatever, start off with a single needle. Now, if you have some sewing knowledge, that also transfers over to embroidery. So that is helpful, that already know a lot about fabrics, needles, stabilizers, threads, tension, things like that. That can definitely transfer over into embroidery, which is can be very helpful. But if you already feel like, okay, you have a business and you're wanting to add on, or you know for a fact, okay, this is what I want to do, I would definitely suggest going with a multi-needle, just because you're not going to be limited. You don't have to worry about the manual thread changes that comes with having a single needle, and you won't be limited on your hoop size. You can go from, I think, what is my smallest hoop that I have? My 5x5, actually. Yeah, is the smallest for my embroidery hoops. I'm just looking at my hoops on the wall. I do have a 9x3, but that is long, but it is still narrow. But yeah, my 5x5 is the smallest one that I use, and the biggest one that I use is my 11x13. And the hoops that I have, my mighty hoops, are for specific items. I got those specific hoops for specific items. I didn't just randomly select those hoops. Now, your machine does come with standard hoops. Mighty hoops is just the icing on the cake. It just makes hooping up your garments faster and easier, especially with their accessories that you could purchase to go with the hoops, whether that's the adjustable freestyle fixture or your hooping station, things like that. Those are all extras you can add on, but they're definitely worth it in the long run. But that was everything that I wanted to go over, just as far as what you need to get started. Your embroidery machine, your thread, your needles, your stabilizers, your hoops, your scissors, your fabric, your blanks, design software, which is optional, and then you have to have a flash drive or Wi-Fi capability to transfer your designs from your computer to your machine wirelessly. So if you do have any questions, and I just want to make sure that I did cover everything. Yes, I did. So, but if you do have any questions, please drop them below in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. If you want me to do a detail about embroidery pricing and how to correctly price your items, and not just price your items based on X, Y, and Z shop on Etsy that's selling theirs for that price, so you decide you're going to sell theirs for that same price. You really have to factor in your labor, your materials, your blanks, your design. Are you digitizing it? Are you purchasing it? So there's a lot that you have to factor in that I feel that a lot of beginner embroiderers aren't factoring in when they're making their items for sale. So if you would like me to cover that in a separate video, please let me know in the comments below, and I would definitely get that video ready for you. But I hope this was helpful to those that are considering starting and just wanting to know what all they would need to get started. These are the items that you will definitely need. But until next time, I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.